A very warm welcome. Good to see you again. Our lecturer for tonight, the Honorable Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the Mona Campus, Professor Archibald McDonald. Our various officials of the university. I see our registrar, I see our coordinator, Director of Research, Professor Eldemarche. I see our Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Weber. I saw Pro-Vice-Chancellor Bernard somewhere in the audience. We have our deans. I saw Dean Boxhill and Dean Tomlin Paul somewhere in the audience, and other colleagues. I saw our director of the Reparations Center Institute, Professor Shepard. And there are, I see our acting director of our Western Jamaica campus, representing that wonderful campus on the west. And we have other colleagues from outside the university. Wendy Hart, President of the American Friends of Jamaica. Wendy, you've been busy with, yeah, she is. And we also have the Mr. Christian Redmer, who is the Chief of the Political Economic Section at the United States Embassy. We have Dr. Delahaye, Winston Delahaye, who is the former president of the Jamaica Fulbright Association. And we have also the members of the organizing committee, including Professor Aline Bailey, Dr. Aline Bailey. A very warm good evening and welcome to this 2018 session of the Sue Cobb Lecture. And before I go any further, let me again, on behalf of the University of the West Indies, thanks Ambassador Sue Cobb and her family for generously donating to the University of the West Indies funds that enabled us to run this series of presentations for 11 years since 2006. Ambassador Cobb, we appreciate it. And given the impact that these lectures have had over many years, certainly Jamaica and the University of the West Indies would want to thank you very, very, very much for that continuing gift. And I just finally mention some of the guests in the audience. I'm seeing Mrs. Carla Siaga, who is a very good friend of the University, Executive Director of the Endowment Fund. Welcome. So, here we are again, and I'm going to minimize my talking so that we can have enough time to hear from our guest lecturer. But for now, let me invite Wendy Hart, President of the American Friends of Jamaica, to bring us greetings.
Thank you. Protocols have been observed. Welcome all. The American Friends of Jamaica is proud to be here today. We have a 36-year history of supporting education in Jamaica, with a long relationship with the University of the West Indies with our Student Scholarship Program. Ambassador Sue Cobb, former U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica, past President and current board member of the AFJ, is well known for her strategic thought and action throughout her career. In fact, she's really well known for her action. And when she was here, those of you who knew her security detail was in for quite a training run every morning. Well, if you've seen her today, she has a stick with her, which might be a little surprising. But the reason is because she was recently skiing down a mountain way faster than I could ever go, and had a very small accident, which, yes, quite appropriate. Emergency medicine was really needed for her. But that approach is one that she has also brought to her philanthropy, which includes the decision to support this lecture each year, specifically focusing on thought leaders of Jamaica. Professor Archibald McDonald has not only been a thought leader, but ideas of his, once cutting-edge and provocative in the field of emergency medicine, have become the standard of care. He has been transformational. We are particularly honored. He has been transformational. Thank you. We are particularly to be honored during his service as Pro, Vice-Chancellor and Principal in UWI's 70th year. He has been a light rising from the West. We look forward to hearing some of his latest thoughts today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Wendy, and I want to welcome Dean Wariboko. Welcome. I'm now invite Mr. Christian Redmer to bring greetings on behalf of the U.S. Embassy.
All protocols observed. Good afternoon and welcome. On behalf of the U.S. Embassy here in Kingston and my chargé d'affaires, Eric Kant, who is actually the gentleman that's listed in your program, who I am not, it's a true pleasure this afternoon to attend this event and to say a few words on behalf of the Embassy. Needless to say, it's been an exciting week for us at the Embassy this week, of course, with the visit of our Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, yesterday. Secretary Tillerson had an excellent meeting yesterday with Prime Minister Holness, and I'm sure everyone here is aware of the fact that he stopped in Jamaica, which was his only stop in the Caribbean, really demonstrates the importance of the U.S.-Jamaica partnership. As you all know, we're partners on a number of critical issues in the region and around the world, including the fight against transnational crime, nuclear nonproliferation, and defense of human rights. As a Foreign Service officer, I'm often asked to brief on the state of U.S.-Jamaica relations and why our relationship is so important. One answer, of course, is that we are neighbors. As Secretary Tillerson pointed out yesterday in his remarks in the press conference, Jamaica is a critical member of our third border, and our interests definitely overlap, particularly when it comes to the scourge of transnational crime. The other major driver of a relationship, though, is what we commonly refer to generically as people-to-people ties. Many other countries from all over the world have a presence in Jamaica, but no other country can match the incredibly strong people-to-people tie, such as that is enjoyed between the U.S. and Jamaica. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, that's what makes our relationship unique. Of course, when you look at people-to-people ties and what that means, it can mean different things. To some, it's a reference to the Jamaican diaspora in the United States, which is a tremendously talented group of people that has contributed mightily to the development of our country. People-to-people ties can also mean the 3+ million U.S. visitors every year that visit Jamaica. But tonight, I'd like to just very quickly point out that organizations such as the American Friends of Jamaica and the Cobb Family Foundation also play an indispensable role in promoting these stronger people-to-people ties between our two countries. The same people-to-people ties that Secretary Tillerson and Prime Minister Holness referenced yesterday. And promotion of stronger people-to-people ties is a key strategic objective, policy objective of the Embassy. So, without further ado, please allow me just to mention that the U.S. Embassy in Kingston has strongly supported this lecture series since its inception in 2005. It's now known as the American Friends of Jamaica Cobb Lecture. We also continue a long-term association with the American Friends of Jamaica. Almost all living former U.S. ambassadors to Jamaica are members of the board of directors of AFJ, and are active in AFJ's charitable work in Jamaica. So tonight, please know that we are very pleased to join with UWI, with the Jamaica Fulbright Humphrey Association, and the AFJ in support of this event, and by extension, stronger ties between our two countries. Thank you and enjoy the lecture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Redmer. Now can we hear from Dr. Winston Delahaye on behalf of the Jamaica Fulbright Association.
Thank you very much, Professor Kawa. All protocols observed. Good evening, everyone. I'll attempt to give you a brief outline of the development of the Sue Cobb lecture series. As the then president in 2005, I did a quick look today in my Sue Cobb lecture folder, and the very first email was March 4th, 2005, from, of beloved memory, Angela Harvey. And we then communicated with, it was Mr. Pereira at the time, the deputy principal, and of course, Mr. Glenn Guimond was then the U.S. Embassy's public affairs officer. And it was determined that we intended to have this lecture at about August, thereabouts, and it was determined by then Pro-Vice-Chancellor Elsa Leoraini that it would be best placed throughout this period of the university's calendar, the Research Awards ceremony. And so one thing led to another. The very first was January 2006. The Cobb Lecture Series was launched along with an award, a scholarship to complement that. And it became incorporated into the university's annual Research Awards ceremony as a focal point of the celebrations. The series is funded by an endowment from the Cobb Family Foundation, Ambassador Sue McCord Cobb, U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica for the period 2001 to 2005. She delivered the inaugural Sue Cobb lecture at the UWI, then at the Undercroft. I see we've outgrown that, and we're now in the Assembly Hall, so much so that I was searching for everybody else at the Undercroft. The organization of the series is done by the American Friends of Jamaica with support from what was then the Jamaica Fulbright Humphrey Alumni Association. As a Fulbright Humphrey Fellow, I was able to have some influence in the name of the organization, as it's changed since then to the Fulbright Alumni Association. But that's fine. In collaboration with the Deputy Principal's Office of the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, and of course, the U.S. Embassy. The lecture series is intended to provide a public forum for discussion of issues that affect the future of Jamaica, and it's been designed to not only raise awareness surrounding the pressing issues facing Jamaica's development, but also to provide an arena of discussion and debate where all concerned with Jamaica's future may listen to expert and academic findings, as well as make their own voices heard. I'll just quickly list the persons who have presented between 2006 and now. Ambassador Sue Cobb, as I pointed out, and her topic was Reflections as Ambassador and Envisioning Jamaica's Future. In 2007, Dr. Derek Deslandes. 2008, Professor Stephen Vassiani. 2009, Dr. Herbert Gale. 2010, Dr. Claudette Crawford Brown. 2011, my colleague, Dr. Wendell Abel, on a topic dear to both of us. 2012, Dr. Paris Leroy. In 2013, Professor Dale Weber. 2014, Mrs. Claudia Gordon. 2015, Professor Byron Wilson. And in 2016, Professor Michael Taylor. 2017, of course, was Ambassador Asamba, and we'll have this evening Professor Archibald McDonald. Just to name as well the two recipients of this year's award, the Scholarship Award 2017-2018, and as a member of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, I am happy to report that both are from the faculty. Not so sure who influenced that this time around, but I have nothing to do with it. And it's Tashiana Willoughby from medicine in the Faculty of Medical Sciences, and Joshua Wright from pharmacology in the Faculty of Medical Sciences. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Delahaye, and congratulations to the scholarship winners. We should have an item from Dr. Joe Wright, but I'm not quite, oh yeah, here he is. Dr. Joe Wright, please entertain us. Wonderful indeed, one of our multi-talented colleagues. Moving on, I'm going to ask Professor Denise to introduce our guest speaker, and as she does so, we will move off the stage so that we can have a better view of the screens. Professor Shell.
Thank you very much, Professor Kawa. Members of the head table, all protocols have been observed, but good evening. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to have been asked to introduce tonight's superb speaker. But it's an extremely daunting task. One, if you know the speaker, the man, and know his work, you will realize that there's much to say, and he's the speaker, I am not. So our speaker tonight began his journey from St. Andrew, a place that we now know as part of St. Andrew. He describes it as country. Manning's Hill, when he was born, was in fact country. No water, no light. That's the start of this journey. He went to Meadowbrook High and then to UWI. He is first and foremost a surgeon. Almost wasn't a surgeon, dabbled with the idea of saving lives in medicine, in internal medicine. That did not last long, as his mentors knew it wouldn't. So as a surgeon, he's used to solving problems. He's also used to making decisions. He's used to being cut and dry and giving orders. It is what it is one of his favorite sayings. But he's also a man who can disagree with you vehemently at times and then ask you, where are you going? We're about to have a drink together. That's a measure of our speaker. He's fiercely proud of UWI, as you will no doubt hear as he talks and takes us through this journey. I sometimes wonder if UWI runs in his veins rather than blood. But you will understand why. He has spent close to 50 years here, except for a gap of 5 years, where he also dabbled in something else. But the call of UWI was too great. At times, if you know our speaker, if you know Professor McDonald, you would say he is a dreamer. Because he has dreams. He has and has had big dreams. He has had visions. The difference with many of us is he has found a way to execute these dreams and to execute these visions despite many naysayers along the way. Many of them have seemed improbable to us, right, Dean, when he spoke about what he would do to that faculty, the building stands today. He doesn't doubt that he can get things done. Underlying this is a true academic. There are over 80 publications and all that goes with academia. So I won't describe his achievements. He's principled, they're there, they're a matter of record. But I'll just mention that saving lives has been Professor McDonald's mission. Whether it's been in A&E, whether it's been as the Dean of Faculty, and saving lives is not just about blood and guts and accidents. It's about saving those students who are desperate. It's about saving people who are at the brink of giving up, because he doesn't give up. So he has contributed to national development by all the young minds that he has created or helped to create as people today. I now invite you to welcome to the podium the Honorable Archibald McDonald, OJ, MBBS, DM, Fellow of the American College of Surgeons, Principal of the Mona campus, as he shares this journey with all of us.
Thank you so very much, my friend and colleague, Professor Most Honorable Denise Elmashera. I think I need to recognize a few persons as the guest speaker, certainly Ambassador Cobb, welcome. Mr. Redmond, Ms. Hutchinson, Ms. Hart, Dr. Delahaye, the other members of the staff of the U.S. Embassy. I think I see some Pro-Vice-Chancellors here. I see Pro-Vice-Chancellor Weber, Pro-Vice-Chancellor Bernal, our deans, our heads of departments, and pardon me if I have not mentioned, if I've left out any names. I must recognize members of the diplomatic corps, my UWI colleagues, and friends, students, good evening. I would like to start by thanking the members of the organizing committee for inviting me to give this lecture today. I really feel very honored by this. I wasn't sure exactly what to say, and I decided to go, as you will see, on a journey to describe my journey. So it's really, I will really be speaking about what I did during this journey, but also include a description of some of the research, not details, because I don't want to bore. It's a mixed audience, and I know that there are many colleagues here, many physicians here, but there are persons here who are not physicians. So it's going to be that kind of a lecture. This is Ambassador Cobb. That's Ambassador Cobb. And I think you know the story well. She was U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica from 2001 to 2005. She was the first woman to serve in that position. She was awarded the Order of Jamaica in 2005, and she continues to be an advocate and certainly a friend of Jamaica. So can we applaud her? These are the areas I will touch on. I will speak a little bit about the early days. I will certainly speak about the response of the Mona campus and in particular the Faculty of Medical Sciences to the financial crisis. I will speak about the development of emergency medicine, a little bit about the epidemiology of trauma and injury prevention, and finally I will speak about funding of tertiary education and what I think is the way forward, which should be the way forward for the University of the West Indies. This is where it started. It started in 1948, and you can see here there's a first class. You are aware that we are celebrating 70 years. The University of the West Indies is celebrating 70 years, but it is really the Faculty of Medical Sciences that is celebrating 70 years, and we are extremely proud of that. So this is a class of 33 medical students. Here is their graduation in, you can see it barely scribbled there, January the 15th, 1953 is when they graduated. And St. Augustine campus started in 1960, was born out of the former Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture. In 1962, the University College of the West Indies became the University of the West Indies under the great seal of the realm, with Princess Alice, Princess of Athlone, as the first Chancellor, and Sir Arthur Lewis as the first Vice-Chancellor. The first expansion of the medical school really took place in 1967 with the formation of the Eastern Caribbean Medical Scheme in Trinidad and in Barbados. And what this facilitated was the training of clinical students in the Eastern Caribbean. And I mention this because I believe that this is an important time for the University of the West Indies, and as we proceed, I will demonstrate and say why this is so critical. But in 2010, we started the construction of the modern state-of-the-art Faculty of Medical Sciences Teaching and Learning Complex. And that's it. Those of you who have not yet seen it, but this is really a very important building. It's not just the building, it's a beautiful building, but there is more to it. Within this building, there are 46 research labs. 46 research labs, and Dean Tomlin Paul, someone who worked with me when I was Dean of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, he knows, he's a dean now, and he knows what he has to do. Most of the research from the University of the West Indies has come from the Faculty of Medical Sciences, especially the faculty at Mona. We need to remember that. Our research output needs to be increased, and that is the tool that will deliver that. But this building really has been hailed, applauded by people, visitors, colleagues from across the world. And some say it is the best basic medical sciences building in the Western Hemisphere. Colleagues who have visited have said that, who have visited many institutions say that this, in fact, there's only one which is similar to this, and that is Johns Hopkins. There are some features of that some people prefer, but certainly this is the largest. So I believe the University of the West Indies should be very proud of this. This building, there's a history to it though, because when I became dean, I was told that this was impossible, but I will come to that a little bit later on. We expanded the medical school, and there's been some criticism of this, but I will explain why the expansion was necessary. And I want to emphasize the fact that as we expanded the medical school, we ensured that, I don't see Prof. Brandy here, but again, Dr. Paul, our new dean, is here. Some colleagues is here. Professor Eldemar Shearer was with us at the time. And we ensure that the quality of our program was maintained. This was very important. I believe our faculty, I believe our MBBS program is really of a very high standard. And we ensured, I'm repeating it, because there has been some misunderstanding about that. I will tell you, one of the criticisms is about clinical training. And those of us who have been around, you heard Professor Eldemar Shearer, have been around for a very long time. When I was a medical student in the same faculty, and there were 80 to 100 students, we had, and Professor Spencer, my former teacher, should know, we had 24, 25 students around a bed. 24 to 25 students. As we expanded the faculty, I worked with Professor Brandy and Dr. Tomlin Paul to make sure that we had no more than 7 to 8 students around a bed. That's what it is in most of the disciplines. There are a few disciplines where we were somewhat challenged, but I need to emphasize this. So people speak about quality, that we lowered the standard. Absolutely not so. In fact, today, I speak to the medical students, and there are 7 to 8 students around the bed. that is for the clinical training. So if anything, the standard, the quality of the program has improved. And we took great pains to ensure that the number of teaching staff, the student to teacher ratio was maintained. In order to contain costs, we employ mainly associate lecturers or part-time lecturers. And what is often forgotten as well is that in Jamaica, there were 23 government hospitals. So in the discussion, this is totally ignored, that there are 23 government hospitals in Jamaica. And what we did was merely utilize more of those hospitals to get the number down to 7 or 8. So it's around a bed. So we utilize associate lecturers, we utilize the many government hospitals in Jamaica to ensure that we maintained the quality of this program. I have taken a long time with this because I think it is important. I have not entered the discussion about this because frequently, sometimes I do privately, but certainly at university meetings, I have chosen not to enter the discussion because, as you heard from Professor Elamai Shero, if I were to enter the discussion about this, as you hear from me now speaking, it could become very contentious, and that's not my nature. Okay, but I want to make it clear that we took the necessary steps to ensure that the quality of the program was maintained. And you can see here, quality is very important, and therefore our capacity to expand is a function of being able to ensure that we maintain quality, not only in the facilities, but in all aspects of the training and educational processes for our students. That is the student, that is the building under construction. And the reason for this was in 2004, the government of Jamaica cut the subvention to the Mona campus by $1 billion, $1 billion. I was head of the Department of Surgery, and I was summoned by the dean, then Professor Morgan. He was the dean, and he called upon me. I had little experience in university administration. My real first big job was the head of the Department of Surgery, and he called me, and he was tearing his hair out, literally, because he said, look, I know nothing about financial matters, and I don't know what to do. When we did the calculations, he would have had to, we were mandated to save or raise $57 million. And the only way we could have done that was to terminate the service of 15 members of academic staff. And he said, Archie, I cannot do that. So let us find a way. And we found a way. We brainstormed, and we came up with the idea of the full fee paying program. Essentially, the basis of this is that for any program which is oversubscribed, we offer places to students who can afford to pay. That is what we did. We had to get permission of Mona FNGPC, University FNGPC, but I want to emphasize that we had to get the permission of the government of Jamaica, and they gave us permission once we ensured that the disadvantaged in our society would continue to have access to the program. Their interest was really to ensure that we maintained 80 to 100 students. This institution, that medical school, between 1966 and 2005, admitted 80 to 100 students every year. There was no increase. And that is what we guaranteed, that those students would be offered the government places. We increased enrollment up to about 300. We have now been cut back to 280, but that is okay. when the dean and I examined it, and I took a tour of the Faculty of Medical Sciences to see how we would accommodate the students. It was shocking to me. The fact is that the curriculum had changed. So there were 2 classes in the then Basic Medical Sciences department, which was in Science and Technology, for those of you who don't remember. And essentially, we had, we had converted, not converted, we were using a tutorial room with a capacity of 30 that I did tutorials in. I think Prof. Spencer might have done tutorials in that room as well, at the physiology tutorial room. And we had 100 students in there. And the day I visited, it was raining, and most of the students were huddled and sitting on the floor. And I said, this is total. It was raining in the lecture theater. Better lecture theater, the larger one, was also raining in that lecture theater. I went back to the dean. I said, Dean, we have a problem. And we decided that, look, I believe that to every problem there is a solution. And I brainstormed, and we constructed a lecture theater. Everybody said it was impossible, that there's no way we could construct a lecture theater in 3 months. And I see Mr. Devon Smith here, the head of our campus projects office, and he was the man who did it. And I met with him. He said, boy, by then I must have been dean, I think. And he said, look, Dean, it is going to be very difficult. And I convinced him, and he said, okay, let's go. And we did it. We were about 2 weeks late, Devon. We completed it. We used the summer period, and we completed it. And we had students in there for lectures the following semester. But we could not stop there, because clearly those facilities were out of date. One of the things I did was to find the report, the accreditation report, the last accreditation report, because we were accredited by the British Medical Council prior to the advent of CAM-HP. And I found the report. And the report said that when at the next visit, you will not gain accreditation with those facilities. Nobody's talking about that. You would not get accreditation. We were lucky because for political reasons, the British decided not to stop accrediting medical schools in the colonies. That is what saved us. So they did not come, and somewhere after year 2000, we opted and established CAM-HP to do the accreditation. But I don't believe we would have been accredited by CAM-HP either. And what we said, look, we have to build new facilities. People said I was mad. My colleagues said I was mad. The members of the Basic Medical Sciences faculty say that this dean is mad. What is he talking about? We have heard this so many times. Where is he going to get the money? But we persisted, and with the help of my good friend Herman McDonald, we found the money. It took us, this building took us, the design of this building, it took us 2 years, 2 years of work. What you need to do when you're doing difficult tasks like this, you can't do it alone, you need a team. And that's what I did. I built a team. I built a team. The first person I co-opted was Professor Harvey Reid, who most of you know, who at the time was a lecturer in physiology. He's a physiologist. And then we got now Professor Wayne McLaughlin, who is there. We got Wayne on board. And to be honest, Wayne did a lot of the work because he attended all the meetings. There were meetings every week, sometimes twice weekly, and he attended the meetings and did the work. A lot of work went into the design of this building, which the reason for that was to ensure that we have adequate teaching and research facilities, which we do now. But the excellence, as I said, continues, and it was there from the start. I believe the strength of the University of the West Indies is its quality assurance procedures. When I was head of the department, it was a nuisance having to go to BUS and to the Board for Graduate Studies. But I do believe now that the strength of the University of the West Indies resides in its quality assurance processes. Very robust processes. The PVC for Graduate Studies is here. And so that is how we have maintained excellence. And you can read that. This was written from the Secretary of the Inter-University Council for Higher Education in the Colonies. And it's a letter to the principal of the Mona campus. And it reads, it's difficult to see from here, of the extremely successful results of the first MBBS examination at the University College of the West Indies, reported to the last meeting of the Inter-University Council. This is a historic document, so I have to read it. The council was delighted at this result and has asked me to convey to you the warmest congratulations. The University College of the West Indies, by being the first of the colleges to produce graduates in medicine, has made history, and has made history in the most favorable way possible. So you can see that excellence was there from the start. So this is UWI's enrollment. We got the data all the way from 1948 to 2008. We were up at 38,000. This is enrollment across the campuses. Now we are at approximately 50,000. This is an important slide because this is enrollment in the faculty. The blue line represents Jamaican students. The red line represents Caribbean students, and students from contributing territories. The gold bars represent students from non-contributing territories. So we need to look at this slide, especially those who are leading the University of the West Indies. Because part of what the expansion did was to restore Caribbean-ness to the medical program. We had gotten to a stage where we had 90% Jamaican students in the class. Strangely enough, the expansion, we saw an increase in the number of Caribbean students, as is shown here. So today, I would say maybe as high as 30% of the students are from the Caribbean. So we restored that much talked about regionality and Caribbean-ness to the program through the expansion. Yes, you need to applaud it because it's not widely known. It's almost a paradox because, but there is more to come. And this shows the same thing. You can see the numbers here, Jamaican students, and you can see where it is now as a Caribbean, more Caribbean students than we had before the expansion. And even international students is also increased. This shows pretty much, well, this is for graduate programs. So you can see that the graduate programs, as we have struggled somewhat, it's up and down, but the trend is up. And Professor Elimashib and PVC Weber will tell you that I think that this year it's really up. If we were to put that bar, it would be somewhere up here. And you can see as well that even in our graduate programs, the Caribbean students, the number of Caribbean students also increased. Enrollment for Jamaicans, this really just showed the enrollment for Jamaican students. But I want to make an important point, and this was a surprise to me, because we implemented the full fee paying program, and the fee at that time for the full fee paying students was $22,000 US. That is a lot for a Jamaican student. But we are talking now about access. But what that did was to increase access for Jamaican students. So we had more Jamaican students enrolled. And I will tell you a story. There was this young lady who came from Western Jamaica. Her father was a security guard who was made redundant. Her mother was an unemployed domestic helper. And she came to me. She had, I think, 2 A's and a B. So she didn't make the cut for the government place. And I offered her, Tomlin, a full fee paying place. She used the redundancy money which she had to pay the first semester. And after that, she had nothing. She struggled. We helped her as much we could, as best we could. She got help from friends, colleagues, from her church, and from the Faculty of Medical Sciences. Tomlin would know her. And when she must have walked 1,000,000 miles. When she came to my office in the 4th year, she said she gave up. She said, "Prof, I have exhausted everything." And I said, "No, continue." And she continued it. And I said, "How can we help this girl?" And I came to Professor Shirley and Denise and Registrar. What we did with the approval of Professor Shirley was to develop a loan program for students in the medical program who had reached the 5th year. I have a way sometimes of distorting things a little bit. He approved the 5th year, but I applied my own action to it, my own affirmative action, and I extended it to the 4th year. So I gave this girl a loan, what is virtually a loan, for the final 2 years of the program. And when we did the calculations, she was taking home $10,000 from the intern's pay, because what she had to do was sign a salary agreement, a salary deduction agreement. And she said, "Prof, I have no choice, I have to do it," and she did it. She came back short time after, and she said, "I'm going to the Chase Fund." I laughed at her. I said, "No, the Chase, I've never seen a student who get money for tuition from Chase." But she said, "Prof, I have no choice." She went, and to cut a long story short, she got $1 million. She came back a few weeks later and said, "Prof, I got $1 million," and we applauded her. And she's now Dr. So-and-so, working somewhere in St. Catherine. Without the expansion, she would not be able to set foot in that program. Absolutely no way she will be able to set foot in that program. There's another young lady from the cockpit country who came similarly, 2 B's, 2 A's and a B. And when I sat down with her and her mother, and she said she walked 4 miles to school, having helped her father with the farm, with the chores around the farm. She walked 4 miles to school and 4 miles back in the evening. And I admitted her to the medical school. I make no apology. That was my affirmative action. And she graduated as well on time, in time with her class. She's now doing graduate studies in surgery. She would not have been able to set foot in that elite program were it not for the expansion. So sometimes I have mixed feelings about it, but if I had to do it again, I would. Okay? So that is the story of the expansion and the benefits from the expansion. I believe that despite the many challenges faced by the University of the West Indies, we continue to contribute in a very meaningful way to the development of the Caribbean and Jamaica. Success has been achieved through innovation and the willingness to be bold and courageous. This is the Kingston Public Hospital, and this is the start of another part of the journey. Because on my first day as an intern at the Kingston Public Hospital, I was confronted, Dr. Robin Roberts, you're a surgeon and you'll understand, with two patients, one with multiple stab wounds, the other was a gunshot wound. As a young intern, my instinct told me that I should go to the gunshot wound, which I did. As I started the resuscitation, a few minutes later, the nurse said, "Doc, the patient with the stab wound has arrested." So I had to leave the gunshot wound and go to that patient. The patient with the stab wounds, we were not able to save that patient. And that is what stimulated my interest in emergency medicine and trauma. Because if we had good emergency services, both patients probably would have survived. And the doctors know the error which I made, especially my surgeon colleague, Dr. Robin Roberts. Today, what emergency medicine did in those days, all we had were casualty departments. There was no triaging of patients. There was no triaging of patients. In fact, Barbados was a bit ahead of us in that regard, thanks to the work of a doctor called Dr. Naidu, who had established an emergency department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. There was all our hospitals in Jamaica had casualty departments, and patients were dying because of lack of expert care by trained emergency physicians. Now, that is what stimulated my interest, and I decided to do surgery with really focusing on trauma care. Were it not for that, I probably would not be here today, because after a stint, as Professor Elimashir indicated, in private practice, I got bored and then returned to the university hospital and joined the surgery program, the postgraduate training program in surgery. I must have been doing very well, if I might say so, because the failure rate in that program was very high. The failure rate was like 90% in those days. And in the fourth year, Professor Spence, I think, was a member of the department. The fourth year, I was called to the head of department, and my mentor, recently deceased, Professor Peter Fletcher, took me to the head of department, who was Professor Rich Carpenter, and they offered me a job in the fourth year of the program. And after giving it great thought, I accepted, because that was really not my plan. Let me confess, but I accepted, and I have not regretted it, because I think I've made a significant contribution to surgery and emergency care, as well as to the University of the West Indies. But this is what came out of that. This is what we did. This is the Accident and Emergency Department at the University Hospital. We're funded by the Bank of Nova Scotia, and subsequently we established a training program in emergency medicine, and also we trained emergency nurses in emergency care. The story is well known, should be known by now, that most hospitals in Jamaica, almost all the significant hospitals in Jamaica, the emergency rooms are manned by trained emergency physicians. And I believe that that has made a tremendous difference. I don't know if I mentioned as well that the DM programs at the university is the reason we were able to send our students everywhere. Because in the major hospitals in Jamaica, they have people who are as well trained and qualified as the teaching staff up here. So we have no problem in sending students to Cornwall Regional, certainly KPH, to Spanish Town, because our colleagues are out there that we trained. And similarly, they are now in the emergency rooms. Right? Without that, this work would not have been done, so I'm mentioning it here. Injuries, are the leading cause of death under the age of 40. It's the fourth leading cause of death overall, and 58 million persons are injured annually in the United States. More years of life, more potential years of life are lost from injuries than other diseases, and you can see it's more than cancer and heart disease combined. And intentional injuries account for more disability-adjusted life years than sexually transmitted diseases. Unintentional injuries account for more disability-adjusted life years than cancer and cardiovascular disease. Injuries account for 1 in 7 healthy life years lost worldwide, and the World Health Organization predicts that this will increase to 1 in 5 by 2020. And the countries most affected are countries like Jamaica and our Caribbean neighbors. They will account for most of the increase. 142,000 injury-related deaths in the United States, costing over $177 million. And it is more expensive to treat injured patients than other hospital admissions. The numbers are shown there. The data for developing countries like Jamaica is only now being documented, and 90% of trauma deaths occur in low and middle income countries, and this is probably related to the lack of resources, personnel as well as equipment, to effectively treat those patients. Right, we established these two databases. The Jamaica Injury Surveillance System collects data on injuries presenting to emergency rooms. This was done jointly between us and the Ministry of Health and colleagues from the government hospitals. It's mainly the Kingston Public Hospitals. At the University Hospital, we established a trauma registry where we collect detailed information on all trauma patients. This was established in 1998, and it remains the main source of research output from the Department of Surgery, even today. PVC Weber, the young surgeons are mining it. Okay, this is what we collect, this information we collect from the GIST. This shows the distribution of A&E cases, and you can see that some 37% of the visits, A&E visits, are due to injuries. This shows the same thing. Okay, the cause of injuries. Injuries are essentially classified as intentional or unintentional, and intentional injuries are the ones, the assault cases and the murders are examples of intentional injuries. And you can see in Jamaica, it accounts of 40% of the injuries are intentional, and 18% are due to motor vehicle accidents. Males outnumber females at almost 2 to 1. And in all types of injuries, males outnumber females. That's the age distribution. The second and third decades. So injuries affect young people. And these agents used to inflict intentional injuries notice that knives and blunt weapons, rock stones and pieces of board are far more common than firearms. Firearms gets the headlines, but those injuries are more prevalent compared to firearm injuries. And more accidents occur in the home compared with the workplace. This is information from the trauma registry. Very similar pattern. You can see distribution of cases, again affecting the second and third decades of life, and the male to female ratio is similar to that of the A&E cases. And again, the causes of injuries, most of the injuries are intentional injuries. And this just gives the length of stay. You can see some patients remain there for as long as 41 days. That's in the intensive care, as you know, that is very expensive. And hospital stay, some stay as long as 74 days. Most of the patients are discharged, 95%, but about 3% of them expire. And these are really just the principal areas affected. I notice head injury is quite common, and limbs and soft tissue injuries next. We did this study to compare a rural area with urban, because most of our studies are done in an urban setting. And you can see a similar distribution of cases in St. Anne's Bay Hospital, and similarly in distribution in terms of intentional and unintentional. Distribution is similar. Unintentional injuries are more prevalent in St. Anne's Bay because of falls. You get a lot of kids falling from trees. So unintentional injuries are more prevalent in the rural areas. I'm going through this very, very quickly. And this is, we should take note. I need some young surgeon or emergency physician to take up the mantle and do this study, because we talk a lot about drug abuse and Dr. Delaye, but you can see that these are the results of a preliminary investigation that we did. And I think I could, this is it, 66% of road traffic accident victims were tested positive for one of three drugs we tested, for cocaine, cannabis, and alcohol. 66% of the victims of road traffic accidents were positive. But look at the next one, interpersonal violence. Your murders would fall here, and 70% of them tested positive for one or more drugs. So cannabis is the most prevalent. 55% of interpersonal violence victims test positive for cannabis. 50% of road traffic accident victims and alcohol was positive in 27% of assault victims, and 43% of road traffic accident victims. Okay, deaths, trauma, injuries are preventable, strangely enough. And you can see when we did the comparison at the University Hospital, the preventable death rate in 2003 was 22.5%. It increased to 28% in 2008, despite our efforts, but the difference was not significant. I won't go take you through that, because there is a very complicated way to calculate the preventable death rate. It's a statistical method, which in those early days, I did it manually. These days, the trauma registry does it for you. So, conclusion, trauma is a major public health problem. Are injuries and trauma preventable? The answer clearly is yes, they are preventable. Okay, and injury prevention focuses in the past on human characteristics and behavior, and research funds are used to reinforce the view that human error is the cause of injuries. Not so, it's not true. So the manufacturers of motor vehicles supported the behavioral approach to divert attention from their product. And this is the from the Rifle Association, in the United States, which says that guns don't kill people, people kill people. I will leave that to your own interpretation. Okay? Role of drugs as a cause of injuries is well known. And Dr. Dele will agree with me that vested interests are reluctant to curb the use of these substances. But I won't go, but injury prevention, maybe primary, secondary, tertiary, it's on the slide, and I'm not going to go into that. And proven cost-effective intervention should be adopted. That should be adopted, not adapted, in middle and low income countries, such as the Caribbean. Health workers are important for identifying those at risk and providing optimum care for those affected, and by advocacy. We need an organized system of care in Jamaica if we are to improve the numbers, the preventable death rate from trauma. And this is the trauma burden. It costs to Jamaica $5.5 billion for direct care of trauma patients. There is an annual indirect cost of $7.2 billion, so the total cost of medical care is $12.7 billion. And this represents 36% of our annual health care budget. Total annual cost of injuries to Jamaica, because remember, it's not just a direct health care, there is loss of productive time and so on, has been estimated about $1 billion US, which is about 7% of our GDP. So a 20% reduction in injuries would save $17 billion. That's not million, $1 billion, Jamaican that is. Okay? Now, I have entitled this slide, The Time to Act, because this is very topical. The murder rate has increased as we predicted. Way back in when it was under 1,000, we did that work and we extrapolated the graph, and the conclusion from that paper said that by 2018, if something is not done to stop the murders, it is going to be somewhere in the region of 1800 to 1800 to 2000. So said, so done. Okay, that was published, so you can check it. Okay, so the murder rate has now skyrocketed, and this was published in a paper that I entitled Trauma, Time for Decision. But we are not, the zones of special operation is good. I believe it is good. I believe it will have some effect because it combines community policing with hard policing and also with social programs. All of those things are very important components if you are to bring the murder rate down. But I believe that we have not done enough work looking at the experience elsewhere. And if you look at the New York experience, New York at one time the murder rate was as high as Jamaica. There are areas in Philadelphia which were just as bad. And that work, colleagues, emergency physicians and trauma surgeons have done the work to show what is effective. What we are leaving out in Jamaica is this. And this was published, rising out of a publication. Edlina published this in the headline. UWI professor calls for zero tolerance. That is effective. What do you mean by zero tolerance? It means that you restore order in the society. And as I said before, the scientific work has been done. They took a community in Philadelphia where the murder rate was higher than in Jamaica. They restored order through zero tolerance. They cleaned up the place, took down the zinc fences, and implemented social interventions, and the murder rate plummeted. And this has been repeated elsewhere. So key to controlling the murders, and I'm going to write a paper for Minister Montague, is zero tolerance. What this means is that you pull people over for the most trivial offenses. And you see a lot of that on the roads, right? The reckless driving and the mayhem and the general disorder. you have to put policemen there. This is why we are training 3,000 police officers to assist the government of Jamaica. So they will have enough policemen to put them out there. That is what you need. You need policemen out there not to turn a blind eye to these offenses, littering of the streets, a host of things that you need. And what you will discover is that many of the persons who are committing minor offenses, they are not good people. Many of them are criminals. And I will tell you, when you see, I grew up in Jamaica. I know Jamaica, which has helped me with my work. Right? And when you see somebody driving recklessly, the reason he's driving recklessly many times is because of who he's transporting and what he's transporting. I know that. So you pull these people over. In fact, that is how they caught the people, the first set of people who bombed the World Trade Center. They were stopped in a traffic stop. That's what it is. Okay? So I would encourage Minister Montague. In fact, I'm going to do the research and send him the paper on the role of zero tolerance to try and get a hold of this madness which is taking place in my beloved country. Finally, funding of tertiary education. This is very controversial. Tertiary education is expensive. The UWI, which is the Harvard of the Caribbean, is expensive. Tertiary education is a key enabler of economic growth. Some people will say it's a public good, and they are correct, and ideally it should be funded 100% by the government. But due to our weak economies, there is no way that that total dependence on the government, what it will do in fact, is to erode our quality. If we depend 100% on government funding Professor Weber, the effect it will have is to erode the wonderful quality which we have at the University of the West Indies. And therefore, I believe the government of Jamaica and the Caribbean governments should make a contribution to the Mona campus. But I believe that we need to continue to do what we have been doing, which is through private-public partnerships and partnerships with public sector to fund and the businesses that we started on the campus to raise a significant amount of the funding. I believe that the government, we need to look at the model, and I believe that the government need to give a commitment, a firm commitment. If our budget is X, they need to give a commitment, and they can do that work to fund. At the moment, they are funding about 35% of our operations. I don't know what that number is. The accountants and the financial people can do that analysis. But it makes no sense every year going to expensive meetings, having useless, meaningless discussions about how to fund the University of the West Indies. It really makes no sense. Right? We need to have we need to change the financial model, and the model I would propose is for the government to give a commitment in terms of a percentage for what they can fund and the university. And this is happening all over the world. In which countries? It's happening in the United States, where universities are required to find a part of their funding. That is what is happening all over the world, and it should not be different in the Caribbean because of this. Our economies are weak. And if the governments cannot afford to pay, they just cannot afford to pay. Money is not an abstract entity. Okay? And that is the problem. So we need to address how we fund our institutions and advise the government how to fund tertiary education if we are to increase enrollment from our 15% up to what is required, which should be at least 30%. Only about 15% of our population is enrolled in tertiary education. All right, so this is what we have done. This is our response. As I said before, 2004, that should be, we got our first cut in funding, and we have implemented the measures I have discussed, the full fee paying programs. We expanded businesses on the campus. At one time we had a call center. We introduce private-public partnerships, and these are well known. The student housing, which 138, they have so far built 1,800 houses, and this provides modern, comfortable accommodation for our students and generate revenues, significant revenues for the campus. But what is not known about this is we now have the financials, and the value placed on those buildings is $7.5 billion with a B. Now, if you think about it, who owns those buildings? It is the University of the West Indies. The arrangement is that the buildings are built by 138, owned by the university, and they operate it under a lease agreement. That's what it is. So the buildings are owned by the university. You need to think carefully about that. With the beating which we have taken from supplementation, Professor Weber, give it, you're a bright man, give it some thought, and maybe in that $7.5 billion with a B lies the answer to our supplementation issues. We are certainly exploring that on the Mona campus. Water project is well known, saving $15 million every month and providing us with a reliable source of water. That too, and this gives the comparison, that too, when I took it to our F&GPC, everybody said, we did that before. I said, but let us do it again, and we got a North American company called North Star to fund it, and the rest is history. And let me give credit at this point in time to my two consultants. I see them here. Ronnie is at you in that pretty shirt at the back. Where's Ronnie? But I see Herman, yes, Ronnie. Dr. Ronald Robinson, let me give him his title, and Mr. Herman McDonald, who are assisted by Sophia Preston, my executive assistant, and sometimes by the person I call the lawyer, who is the campus legal officer. That is essentially the team, and that is saving $15 million per month, but equally important, providing us with a reliable source of water. Cogen plant, contracts. I've never signed so many contracts for one project, but that's signed. And look at our partners. Those are our partners. Grace Kennedy, providing the financial. New Fortress Energy, providing the energy, the LNG. And you can see it's all there. When we come off JPS, the details are there, but we will save $350 million annually. That will be the savings. And that contract has been signed. The work has started. That will be commissioned later this year. Remember that. Okay, I think Professor Eldemire Shearer, I've taken a little long, but you know, I'm passionate about this. But these are the recommendations for the Mona campus and for the University of the West Indies to continue to build partnerships to realize a reduction in the cost of operating the campus and thereby reduce tuition. Students are young, they don't understand, but money is a tangible entity. That is how you bring tuition down, not by going on the radio and demonstrating and so on. That's how you bring the tuition down. And we need to increase the quality, quantity and quality of our research output. And we need to continue to partner with private and public sector to solve our problems. This is how we will get economic growth regionally. And internationalization is now well on the cards, thanks to the great work of our registrar. We have restored our registration with the Department of Education in North America. And what that means is that as of next semester, we will be accepting students from North America because they will be able to get federal funding. We have had a few over the years, and they stay here and then they leave because they said, when I came, I thought I would have access to federal funding. But now they can come to the UWI, Mona, and will have access to federal funding. And as we bring the cost down, this is where we are heading. We need to, as I think I said it before, but that is, all of this will result in that 30% enrollment in tertiary education, locally and regionally. I thank you for listening.
Right. I think you'd all agree that we have had excellent nourishment for our and as Prof ended up his talk with that story about our success in terms of getting approval from the United States. I just remembered I don't think I acknowledged the registrar. Campus registrar, did I acknowledge you when I was? Yeah.
He's asking
okay.
if you acknowledged.
Well, that's our hard-working campus registrar, and and has been extremely instrumental in working with the American authorities to get that done. But thank you so much, Prof. McDonald. And as I always say to my colleagues, you have been a gift to the University of the West Indies. You have been a gift to Jamaica. Keep going for as long as you can. We do have not sure if we have time for questions, but let me allow one or two burning.
His journey maybe at Smoker, over refreshments, we can discuss a bit of that. Thank you very much, Dr. Wright, for your presentation. Prof. Eldemar Shero, you have provided so much leadership in this area. This is one of the Research Days events, and so we thank you very much for your introduction and your continuous support and the partnerships. So to everyone, the principals, family, friends, colleagues, all the events and the teams who have been organizing this event, we thank everyone, persons who have been here and via live stream. Principal, we thank you for taking us on this journey, and we look forward to continued journeys.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Bailey. That brings us to the end of this wonderful evening, and I would now want to invite you to refreshments that are served behind that red curtain. So thank you so much. Please come back next year around about the same time. Thanks.